afternoon, Rich. This is week 4 of our Warblends in the
Warblends in the
R&R.
West Country.
Warblends in the West Country. So, you had a good week?
Yeah, very good, very good. Staying in, strangely enough, eating lots and drinking copious amounts of alcohol.
What have
How's
you
the
been
cider down your neck of the woods?
The cider's been excellent this week. I've been having a bit of the old Devon Red this week. A nice little brewery up the road in Crediton. But what about you? What have you been drinking?
Yeah, no, I've got a lovely brewery up in Wiley, and they're producing some lovely lager and IPAs, locally brewed. Got their own borehole, so the water's local. No, very low mileage on and having to get it, and you can order it online, and it arrives within 24 hours. It's marvellous.
Well, it's funny you mention that because we've been doing a bit of research, haven't we, on brewery deliveries and whether they're pivoting.
Yeah.
And all that's to come. So have a look for that on LinkedIn when we send that out to see how easy it is to order your booze online.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, busy old week then, eating and drinking. But I guess what we want to talk about this week in episode 4 is, in the first week we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and who was getting it right and it's wrong. And then we talked about adapting to the new rules that the pandemic has forced upon us as businesses, and then in week 3 we talked about starting to think and plan, after the pandemic, what have you learned from your client journey and what's worked for you during the pandemic and what you're going to take forward and use in the new normal. So today we're going to talk a bit about lifting the lockdown, because we know, don't we, that on Sunday Boris is going to talk to us about the government's plan to get us back to some kind of new normal, so to speak. And I guess is that there'll be a huge amount of planning going on in the corridors of power at the moment. But in truth, I suppose for all of us, we probably know that for a number of months, maybe years, the normal way in which we did things won't be normal. We'll have to socially distance. We'll have to have PPE available when we're interacting with our clients and customers. And I can't be honest, Rich, if I was a business owner that had to open up premises, all the great guys and gals out there that have got brilliant businesses that they want to reopen and start trading again and want to start giving their customers and their clients great products and services again, I would be really in that operational mode, quite rightly, to think about how I'm going to do that, because I'm looking at a guidance document here from one of the local chambers of trade, and they're quoting BuzzFeed on what to do if you've got general guidance for a workplace, if you run a factory or a warehouse, if you run a shop. I mean, there's loads of great stuff. If you run an office, if you are working outdoors, it's great, but it's all operational. It's all about what you've got to do.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that, Rich?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I've been keeping an eye on it, and there is even more guidance coming through. And I think the key thing we know about customer experience is that there's 2 areas that you need to consider. One is the process, the operational piece. So how do you do the day-to-day things? How do you get communication out? How do you get people into your shop or into your premises? How do they sit at a desk? How do they fill in various forms? All of that operational piece is really, really important. The other thing that we have in terms of customer experience and delivering great customer experience is the people piece. And what we are seeing or not seeing at the moment is that people piece being taken into consideration. Now, quite rightly, we're talking health and safety. There's certain situations where you've just got to do the right things and you've got to do them well from an operational point of view. And that will make a difference to a lot of organisations, and they will be able to operate in a very different way, but they'll be able to operate. Those organisations that actually thrive beyond this or even during this are the ones who are going to couple that with the people piece. And when we talk about people piece, I think the key thing that we're talking about at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan, but it's about reassurance. It's about a virtual hand-holding of your customers and clients during this really, really interesting phase of the situation we find ourselves in. Because we're not going from one lockdown to open, we're moving, and we're gradually going to keep moving. Things are changing all the time. We're going to have to change our approach all the time. So reassurance, virtual hand-holding. How are organisations going to go and do that? What's your thinking about that?
That's a great point. It brings me back to a little bit about what we were talking about last week, and I make no apology really for repeating it, because I think it's as relevant in this discussion as perhaps it was, perhaps even more relevant in this discussion than it was last week. And what I mean by that, Rich, is the voice of the process, the voice of the employee, and the voice of the customer that we talk about when we're client journey mapping with our clients. And interestingly, this week I've had lots more conversations with businesses about those three core things. Yeah, but what's our view, and how we can help, and how we can have a really objective view about sort of looking in on businesses to say, is your process delivering for your customer and your employees? And what a lot of these documents, these operational documents, are describing is the voice of the process, which is great news, because actually that's the bit that you can sort of bolt onto your current process, and you kind of go, so actually, if in my hair salon I need to socially distance my customers, how am I going to do that? And there's lots of great evidence and tips to do that. But are you really clear with your team when they come back? I mean, your team might have been furloughed, they might have been on reduced hours, they might have been completely disengaged from being at work for the last 4 weeks, and who can blame them? You know what? Those guys have had a really sort of rough time for many of them. They've been insecure about what's going to happen, and now they're back at work. They'll be feeling, elated to be back. I'm sure they might feel even a bit afraid to be back, because they might be thinking, the virus is still out there, and what are the things that my boss has put in place to protect me, so that I can interact in a really warm way with my customers. So building on for the voice of the process, Rich, where a lot of that stuff is done for you. You just bolt it on to your other processes. The voice of the employee is crucial, because making sure that your team that are maybe coming back from furlough, or they've been on reduced hours, or whatever it is, they're going to be coming back to work, and they're going to be scared, and they're going to be worried, and they're going to be apprehensive, and they're going to need a bit of metaphorical hand-holding as well to make sure that they know how to keep themselves safe, and they know what the new process is, and they know where you want their people, their customers to stand, and what to say to them. And it's really basic stuff, but spending the time with your people, making sure they understand the new process and how they can protect themselves, is crucial. And then, again, sounding like a bit of a stuck record, the voice of the customer. When the customer does come back, I think that presents lots and lots of challenges to the physical representation of a customer in your premises, because you know what, there is a story and I think a very well-founded one, that actually trying to entice customers back out of their homes to interact with you and your business might be harder than we think it is. We're assuming, aren't we, that everybody's desperate to get back out onto the high street, or to their local retail park, or out to their bank or their building site, or whatever it is. We're assuming that people want to rush back out. So it will be a balance between making sure that the current processes and procedures, the online stuff, sort of runs in tandem with the new normal of re-engaging back in with the economy. I don't know if that rings true with you, Rich.
Yeah, honestly, it's really interesting what you were saying there. I think the key thing that I'm picking up there, and I'm hearing a lot as well, is this word confidence. We're in a situation where people are not feeling as confident as they normally would. Even going out and interacting, picking your shopping up from the supermarket in a click and collect fashion, where you have to wait in the car, you've got to wait for somebody to speak to you 2 minutes. That whole your confidence, it has been eroded. And now we're going to put new things in, new changes in, and which we don't know about and how they're going to operate. I hear a lot on the media of people being interviewed and saying, well, I won't be getting on public transport anytime soon. I won't be going on an airplane anytime soon. It's about confidence. How do we instill that confidence in everybody, in our external customers and consumers and clients, the people who pay us money, and our internal customers, to exactly your point, the staff? How do we ensure that confidence? So the basics still really matter here. Communication, one-to-one communication. Are you asking great questions to understand what it is your customers want? Are you listening to the answers? Now, we might not be doing this in the old-fashioned way of having a conversation with somebody face-to-face. We might have to do it online, on the telephone, via one of these calls, but we've still got to ask great questions. We've got to listen.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point you make, Rich, about communication, because effective communication that is right for the time that you're in is really interesting, and it's lacking in so many examples. I'll give you I'll say a classic story. So our co-op in Chudley has been a bit of a mecca recently, because people are trying to stay at home. They're clearly not very far in the car. I don't know. Chudley's got a population of 4,000 or 5,000 people, 2 supermarkets, 2 small supermarkets, and it's really difficult when you go to do your top-up shop, go to buy me cider or whatever I'm going up there for. There's a little sign outside that says, please wait until somebody comes out for you to go in. That's fine, but there's never anybody stood there, so you're kind of stood at the door thinking, do I go in, don't I go in? You know, I haven't seen anybody come out. Is there anybody in there in the first place? And then when you get in there, there's kind of a one-way system that you've got to follow, and you've got to try and socially distance, which is really, really difficult, because the aisles are no more than 2 meters wide, so if that, so you can't keep the 2 meter distance. And then the queuing system goes back through the shop where you're trying to pick up the product. So after a fairly stressful visit to the shop to buy my Devon Red at the weekend, when I finally got to the end to pay, there was a really lovely lady called Margaret. Lovely Margaret. She was smiley, she was happy, she was stood with all her PPE on, and I thought, okay, great, you know, great call, great interaction now. Stood behind the line, put my cider on the side to buy, and she was so lovely. And I'd had quite a stressful sort of trip round. I'd gone down the one-way system the wrong way, and you know, you name it, I did it wrongly.
You're the one, yeah.
I'm the one, yeah. And she said, would you mind giving us some feedback about your experience today? And I thought, well, you know what, I'm in the customer experience industry, I cannot refuse a request like that. So I said, yeah, of course. So she gave me this little card with a number on it. So I got home, and Jay said, God, you've been gone ages. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, regaled the story of going the wrong way round and not being able to socially distance. And anyway, so I took the card and I said, but I met Margaret and she was lovely, and you know, she was really kind, and I feel like I've got to give her some great feedback. So I went on to the Co-op feedback website, and I put her number in that she'd given me, and that was all fine, and really easy to access. But do you know what? There must have been 20 questions in this survey, and not one of them in this survey, Rich, was relevant to COVID-19, the current crisis. It was just a general survey. And I was trying to be, well, I didn't want to leave a bad review, because do you know what? Apart from the bit I wanted to recognise was the great interaction I had with Margaret. But that was impossible to do, because the survey they'd given me was a general survey about life as normal. And I just thought, you know, that's such a missed opportunity for them to kind of go, how are we doing? How do you feel safe in our shops? You know, do you feel as if you feel confident shopping in our stores? You know, do you
Great
feel
question.
as if, you know, and I didn't, but I couldn't get the message across.
Absolutely. I think it's a really, really good example, Ryan, in terms of this communication. Communication is critical. We've got to do it. It's got to be relevant, exactly as you say. So when it comes down to the processes, all of those organisations now and businesses are getting guidance of how to do things. Brilliant. Follow that guidance. Then looking at the people piece when it comes to customer experience. How is it making your customers feel? Remapping the journey that your customers are going to be taking with you needs to be done. I'm sure everybody who's listening has obviously done that, because they're brilliant. They're listening to CX podcasts, so they've probably all done all this sort of thing. But they've got to remap. You've got to look at it again. You've got to see how that interaction and any communication that goes with it makes your customers feel. So people, process. We've got to go, Ryan. So what are the last couple of things that you want to say to everybody in terms of what we've been warbling on about today?
Well, yeah, do you know what? The key bit of this, right, and it's quite simple, isn't it? You're going to be thinking about coming out of lockdown as a business. You're going to be thinking about the operations process you're going to have to implement. So when you're doing the operations piece, don't forget, coming out of this, what does that mean for your people? How are they going to feel? What time do you need to invest in them? And then most importantly, how is it going to feel for your customers? Okay, how are they going to feel confident? How are you going to guide them, and how are you going to communicate to them to make it a really good shopping experience, or a purchasing experience, or an interaction? How are you going to really measure that? Because brands that do that well will be massively successful as they come out of the lockdown. So think about the reassurance you're going to give your people. Think about the guidance you're going to give your customers, and think about the confidence that you're going to give them when they are interacting with you as a business. And those are the key three things that I really want to share: reassurance, guidance, confidence, as we move out of the lockdown.
Superb. Thank you very much. And here endeth the lesson today from the West Country. Have a safe week. And we've had a few glitches on the internet this week. So down the bits of string that connect us here down in the West Country, I'm afraid it's taken a little bit longer than we'd hoped. So apologies for if any quality isn't quite as good. But we'll be back on form next week. So it's from me, Richard, over here in Wiltshire. Goodbye.
Ryan, down in Devon. Have a lovely week. And I'm sure you'll look forward to Boris's announcement on Sunday. And we'll speak to you all again next week. Thanks.